Sztanyo, what is going on? Happy Sunday evening. Happy December. Glad to be in here with you tonight. Got a lot to talk about. We're going to do a real estate market update. We're going to talk about some news that's going on. And, you know, it's Christmas time, right? So we're going to take a look at a few local people that I find super inspiring, who give back to the city, who help make this city a wonderful place it is. It's that time of year where all I know doing Christmas shopping and running around and full of, lots of activities, but it's also time to stop and reflect and give back and be thankful. We made it through Thanksgiving. The Bengals are absolutely terrible, so we don't have to worry about them crowding our December schedules, I think, anymore. We don't have to worry about that. And so, yeah, we're gonna look at the real estate market. We're gonna answer any questions you have, and look at a few interesting people here in the city that I want to introduce you to. I think are really fascinating to look at. So first of all, welcome in. My name's Eric. If you don't know me, as always, let us know where you're watching from. Leave it in the chat. I love doing these YouTube lives because I get to actually interact with you and answer questions that you have. Was just coming from a listing appointment out in Crescent Springs, Villa Hills area, and had an awesome time with part of the Sztanyo, who's out there. Sent them a listing doc. They're being relocated. And so I always like to be able to use this channel to connect with you guys directly and hopefully connect with more of you, but also help you get introduced to the area and understand what's going on in the city. And we're going to obviously spin that from a real estate standpoint and look at some news both this week, hopefully in the weeks to come, about big stuff that's coming for 2025 in Cincinnati as well. So let's dive into it. As always, leave a message in the chat. Let's start with the real estate market and where things are at. Let me, it's been a little while here, so let me get this over. Okay, let's do this one right here. And let's see if I can, yeah, we'll go here. Okay. So what are we looking at here? What I want to show you guys is a few stats and a few charts of what's going on here in Cincinnati in the real estate market. So we just finished the month of November 2024 here. What we are looking at here is the median price sold of homes over the last 2 years. So this is a 2-year time frame. And we are looking at Claremont, Butler, Warren, and Hamilton counties. So kind of the 4 biggest counties there in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati area. And usually these numbers are pretty close to Northern Kentucky as well. First of all, got a shout out. What up, Luke Farmboy? What up, Team Sztanyo, the best real estate group in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky? Hey, Luke, thanks for watching, man. Appreciate you jumping in. Good to see you. So what are we looking at in the median price sold? We are looking at about exactly what I predicted the last time we looked at this, which is the median sale price has come down ever so slightly here in November from October. This is typically what we see towards the end of summer and heading into fall and into winter. So if you go back in 23, you kind of see something similar here from August, September, October, November, December, January was where it bottomed out. And then prices started going back up in February. Excuse me. It's the same thing the previous year. You see November dropping down in December, January being the low point, and December going up. What does that mean for you? I'm going to say this again because I've been saying it time and time again here in the last few months. December, although you're crazy busy doing Christmas things and all of the other activities and Christmas parties and all that stuff, it's actually probably your best month of the year to actually buy a house from a pricing standpoint, from a getting a deal standpoint. So if you're a buyer, yeah, there's not a lot of inventory. Yeah, it's cold. Yeah, it's dark at like 4 p.m. But if you can look past all that, and if you can shop and you're not locked into a school year, or anything like that, December is really the best time of year. Because when we look back at these stats here, January is the low point here the last few years. But what that means is December was when people actually bought those houses and they closed in January. So everything's kind of a month trailing here, if you understand that from this chart. So what that means is December's a great time of year to buy. Now, there's usually less inventory as well, but we're going to look at that as well. We're going to look at inventory and what's going on there. But what we're seeing overall here in November is pretty much what we expected. A lot of people were kind of sitting back in terms of the election and what's going to happen with the election. And the election has come, the election has gone. And probably what we'll see in December is something very similar to what we saw in previous years of December, where median sale price will go down a little bit. And what's driving that really is there's less buyer demand overall. So I know I'm telling you that it's a great time to buy a house, and it is, because most other people aren't buying a house right now, right? They're waiting until springtime, till March, April, May, June. And that's why you see in the other part of this chart here is median price goes up in March, April, May, June, July, because there's more buyer demand at that time. So the reason why it's a good time to shop, not only are prices going down, but there's less competition out there. There's less of a chance that you're going to be in multiple offers. So it's a great time of year to buy a house. Do I think, what's up, Luke? Good question here. Let's check this out. Do I think interest rates will come down? Yeah. How's that for an answer for you? I don't know. I think let me pull up something really quick here. St. Louis Fed interest rates. See if this is the chart I'm looking for. No, let me do Fed. 1 second, Luke. I'll answer your question. Mortgage rates 30-year. Okay, here it is. All right, let me pull this over here. We're answering questions for you guys on the fly here, so give me some grace. All right, here we go. Let's look at this. Okay, here's where we're at. Okay, this is a 30-year fixed rate mortgage average in the United States, going back to what, 1970-ish. Okay, so about the last 55 years. Currently, we're at around 6 3/4, right around there. And we've kind of been hanging out in this area for the last year, really. They said they were going to come down. They kind of came down in January, February last year a little bit, but then they got back up to 7. So they've been hanging in this 6.5, 7 range, maybe closer down to 6 for the last year plus. What I want to show you is how this relates to, how this relates to the average of the last 55 years. So where do you think this is, kind of comparatively speaking? I mean, it's roughly average, right? You've got times here in the 70s and 80s and early 90s where you're over 7, and in the 10s, in the 9s a lot, in the 9s and 10s and 8s. Then you had this crazy inflationary period in 1980, early 80s, where you hit up to like 18%, which is just insane. And then you have this period, from 2000 and roughly 5 on. So the last 15 years, we were under 6% for most of the time, right? And then we hit that beautiful, crazy, once in a multiple lifetime, where you're down in the 3s and even the 2s in early 2021. And that's when everything absolutely went crazy from a buyer demand standpoint. And so what you need to know is, could they go down? Yes. What's going to happen if they go down? If interest rates go down, all that buyer demand that's kind of maybe been sitting on the sidelines a little bit is going to go up. A lot more buyer demand means housing prices are going to go up higher again. So will it save you on your monthly payment? Yes. But will you have a more expensive house? Probably. So there's a trade-off there. The other question is, what if interest rates go up? Which the other part of this chart is, a lot of this time frame is they're above, this kind of average line of 6, 7. So could they go up to 8, 9? Yes. So I'm not a full economist. I know there seems like there's going to be a lot of change potentially in this administration. I'm very curious to see what happens with Doge. I'm very, very, very curious. I think it's going to be a whale of a fight, and how that will impact the housing market. I mean, if I were to put money on it, I think the economy is going to be spurred from the previous few years. And I think that could help in a lot of ways. But, what will happen with interest rates is kind of anyone's guess. Luke is also asking, do new construction home prices increase up in the spring too, or do those stay somewhat stable? That's a great question, Luke Farm Boy. Yeah, they tend to go up too. They actually tend to rise with the buyer demand, just like the resale market. And so, especially if you're launching like a new phase or a new development or something like that, when there's more an increased demand or something that's new and flashy, or if they're in that spring and summertime, because that's when the most buyer demand exists. And so, it's just simple that, if you just break everything else down into simple economics of, higher demand equals higher prices, lower demand equals lower prices, that's going to get you pretty far in understanding the real estate market in general. Okay. That's going to get you most of the way there. And just like there are a lot of people who buy new construction now because they want it to be, if they're building, because they want it to be done in the summer. So if you're on like about a 6-month build frame, they might want to buy that now. But what's great about doing that's why I actually think this is it's not only a great time of year to buy resale, and we're going to get back to the market here and look at the supply and demand. It's a great time to buy resale from sellers because they're motivated to sell in the winter, and you can usually get a pretty good discount on the sale price. It's also good for builders. I got an email this week, Fisher Homes, they're offering like 1, 2, 3-point buy downs. They're trying to move, you're probably not going to close this year. So you missed some of their best sales may have been in November, but they still got some really good incentives right now. Buying in the winter from builders is usually good. And buying in the spring, summer, usually the prices are going to go up because that demand is there as well. You are absolutely welcome. Happy to answer your questions. Thank you for asking them. I love being able to do that. All right. So let's get back into, hopefully that helps you there for the interest rates. Let's take a look. So here we are from the median sale price. And what we're looking at again is, spread this out here. Median sale price came down ever so slightly here in November. It's at 290 right now in Cincinnati. And the peak was in July, hit around 312. And the low point, 2 years ago from this point was at 255. So it's a 17% change over these 2 years for the median sale price. So let me switch over here. Let's do this. Let's make this a little bigger. All right. So now we're looking at supply and demand over the last 2 years, and let's see where the market is. Again, this is pretty predictable, so I don't want to spend, if you have questions, guys, continue to put them in. It's great. But this is what we're seeing basically right now is a pretty normal seasonal real estate market right now. And to be fair, that's a big deal because we haven't had a lot of normal markets the last few years. But now that we're a few years post-COVID, we are seeing more normal seasonality. And what I mean by that is, you tend to see a little bit more supply. So the red units, the red bars here are the units for sale. Now it came down actually a little bit in November. And if we go back last year, it's going to be the same. There's less people who are looking to sell in the winter. There's less people buying in the winter. So, overall, if you look at the average kind of in the fall and winter months, so these low months of August through kind of February, is about 30% down from usually the high months of like March, April, May, June, July. Even February, it starts to pick up. So this makes sense. What we're seeing here, we're seeing slightly less inventory in November. Again, it's a more seasonal timeline. We see that drop in November of 23. We see a drop from November to December in 22. You're going to likely see this same kind of drop here in December and January from an inventory and units sold standpoint. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. So Brandon's jumping in here. Awesome. I definitely have been seeing more normal seasonality in my market, but contrarians always point to other data. Yeah, for sure. Where's your market, Brandon? Curious to know what part of the US that is. So, yeah, I mean, that's why I think it's so helpful just to look at these charts and be like, look, here's where we're at, because what you're going to get as a buyer or a seller, you're going to get all the headlines that are just like, they're headlines, right? And they're aimed to elicit some kind of emotion from you, whether that is, fear or anger or whatever it is, usually not joy. It's like usually anger or fear. So just know that that's why I think just looking at, okay, where are we at? Okay, where were we at from the last 2 years? So if you look, if you not just look at November, but step back even further on this chart, what you're kind of seeing is overall, if you take this last year here, so half of the chart right down the middle, you're seeing more inventory in 24 than you are in 23, right? So and quite a bit more. It's actually a 43% increase if you take this first year over the previous year. And that is a big deal. And so that's why we have seen more price reductions this fall. We've seen inventory stay on the market longer this fall and into winter here. And that's good news for you as buyers. For sellers, you got to think about that a little bit more carefully. Greater Sacramento doesn't have the land constraints as the Bay Area. Very cool. I'm very curious about that market. But thanks for jumping in, Brandon. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be buyers or sellers who are going to say, what if this, what if that? And so that's why what I try to do on the channel and with my clients in general, when I talk to you, is like, let's just kind of look at the overall picture. Let's look at the stats here. Let's kind of understand what the market it is. Because ultimately, when is the best time to buy or sell real estate? It's when's best for your situation. Okay. If you're trying to time the market, if you're trying to time the rates, if you're trying to time whatever, I mean, you get a feel from seasonality here for sure. And that's why I continue to say, like, buying in the winter is pretty great. If you can do that, if that's a time that works for you. And on the flip side, selling in the spring makes a lot of sense, because that's when you're seeing there will be more inventory, but there's also a lot more buyer demand, right? At least here in the Cincinnati area, Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, we kind of follow, when it's very different in Florida, for example. My brother and sister-in-law live down there in Siesta Key, and I think they're going to be putting their home on the market soon, because winter's actually the great time. It's like the high season to sell, because all the snowbirds are down there. And instead of renting, they might be looking for properties to buy. So, it just depends on where you're at. For here in Cincinnati, low time is more winter and high time is spring heading into summer, because people want to buy and sell a house while kids are out of school in that time frame. That's what we see here. So let's look at the final chart here, and then we'll look into some other fun stuff. So last chart is days on market and supply of inventory. Okay, so again, what I'm seeing here is a pretty normal real estate market. We're seeing the supply of inventory increase a little bit here in November over October over September. Because again, this is supply and demand. There's less buyer demand out there, so the inventory is creeping up slightly. We're at 1.8 months. Again, a balanced real estate market is 6 months of inventory. So a balanced market between buyers and sellers is 6 months. We haven't been anywhere near that in a long time. Pre-COVID for sure. Maybe back in like 2010, something like that, 2011. That might not be right. I'd have to check on that. It might be closer to like 2014, 15. But what the other thing you're seeing here is this blue line chart is the days on market, or at least the average days on market creeping up. So that's including homes that have been out there a long time. But overall, you get the average, which is, it's been creeping up every single month since July, August, September, October, November. So again, what does that mean for you? What does it mean for you to see more inventory on the market and days on market climb up? If you're a buyer, it's great news. It's great news. It's a little less stress to get out there and shop right now. It's, you don't have to give away as many things. You don't have to be quite as aggressive in your offer. In fact, you've got a little bit of control right now of offering under. And, a lot of sellers need to sell their house right now in order to buy the next one. And so it's not like you have all the power. It's still a seller's market here locally, because overall it's, inventory is at a point under 2 months of inventory where it's still lower overall. But every single month that I've seen here since, July, it's like buyers get a little bit more power, a little bit more power, a little bit more power, a little bit more power. The hard thing, obviously, for you as a buyer is like affordability, right? Is home prices continue to go up. And so I know you've kind of reached a ceiling in terms of interest rates and home prices from where they were a few years ago to how much home prices have continued to go up, because they have not come down. And so that's probably what has tamped down the demand, is like, it's just an affordability issue. And I get that. But from a market perspective and days on market, and when you're out there shopping and when you're ready to put in an offer, you have more control and more power now and more leverage now than you've had in years. So I'll continue to say that again and again for buyers. It's like, it's a good opportunity for you now. And if you're looking at Sacramento and different markets across the country, it's one reason why I like doing this channel. I'm just going to kind of keep pitching about Cincinnati, which is like, this market here compared nationally is an affordable city with cool amenities. And so you've still got where, if you've been priced out around the country in different places, which a lot of my buyers have, they find us on YouTube and then they come here because they've been priced out of different cities, or maybe they're moving here for family, friends, something like that. But Cincy is a great place for jobs, for cost of living, for retiring, for all kinds of reasons. It still makes a lot of sense for people. Luke, can you negotiate new construction homes, or is that frowned upon? Luke, I love the way you're thinking. I feel like we need to touch base here. That's another great question. The answer is yes, you can negotiate. Now, the answer also is builders are a little bit more rigid in negotiating than resale homes. This is a huge reason, by the way. And again, I know I say this on my reels and all that over and over again, but this is a reason to reach out to a real estate agent. Because we can do this negotiating for you, which is great. And especially agents like myself who do a lot of new construction, and they want to keep making me and my clients happy because they want me to bring more leads to them. That gives me a little bit more negotiating power, I'm not going to lie, versus someone who's never done a deal with a builder, or even worse, maybe on your own working with a builder. So I love negotiating these. I will say, Luke, it's not frowned upon, but where you often have more negotiating power are the market ready homes or the spec homes that are already built. So if there are homes out there, they're not sold, and they're probably not sold because the lot is not quite as good, or maybe the upgrades in the house weren't quite as nice, or something like that. It might not. Now, a lot of them out there are still great. But those are the homes that they've been sitting for a while in particular, where you can really get some negotiating power, because the builder, it's just eating a hole in their wallet every single month that they don't sell that property. It's already built. Now they've got the holding costs every single month that they're paying. And they're like, we need to get this thing off the books so we can so we can go build the next one. So the market homes in particular is where you can at least negotiate off of price. The, contract to build homes, the new ones, that's where builders, you can still negotiate on that. Again, it depends on the demand of the community. Is it a new release? How much buyer demand they have? How quickly they're selling? Again, it comes back to supply and demand. If they have more demand, then then there's less room to negotiate. But also, that probably means you might get a better lot or some other advantage in the neighborhood if you're willing to buy new construction where there's less leverage to negotiate on. So, where builders, particularly with contract to build homes, where they want to negotiate on is more on the incentive, on the selections. So when you go to choose your faucets and your, carpet and your flooring and your countertops and your cabinets and all that, they would rather do something like, we'll give you, if you do 15,000, we'll give you an extra 15,000 for free. Because when they're doing a new phase, a new development, they want to keep those prices higher because they got a whole lot of other houses that they want to sell. So they don't want to dip down on the price on the contract to build ones. Does that make sense? They would much rather, the one that's already built, they're willing to budge on that price a little bit. Now, it's not a crazy amount, but the answer is yes, you can negotiate with them. Luke, you're already working with me. Okay. Yeah, my bad. So that's awesome. Thank you. So yes, you do have some room there with the builders. I didn't know you by your YouTube name. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's finish up here and get back to some other news that's going on here in Cincinnati. So that's what's going on. Inventory is going up. I expect December to creep up a little bit. I expect days on market to creep up a little bit, just like you saw here. I mean, look at from December. Now look, this from November to December last year was a huge bump because interest rates shot up almost 8% then. So that's why that was a really good time to buy. If we go back to, let me go back here. If we go back to the median sale price, December, again, January was the lowest point in like the last 2 years, almost from the previous year as well, because inventory went up so high. Hey, I'm all about YouTube aliases. Right on. Good thing to do. Okay. So I hope that's helpful, guys. Giving you a little bit of a market update, what's going on here in Cincinnati and what that means for you. I want to hit a few stories here. Which one do I want to go to first? Let's talk about charity a little bit. I came across this story about a week plus ago. When was this written? Maybe 2 weeks ago. This was November 27th. And this is Harry and Linda Fath. And you guys can't see it because I don't have it up on the screen. Okay. Harry and Linda Fath. This is a very cool story. The quiet catalysts for all their vaccinations. The Faths. That's really hard to say. The Faths. Bigger aim is to push others to do their part. So two families I just want to kind of point out here in Cincinnati. And by the way, I'm just going to say it again. If you're not from Cincinnati, who did I meet with? I had a conversation this week with someone who's not from here. Oh, from New York. She's from Manhattan, and she just moved here. She's actually looking to get on the team potentially, and got a real estate license, reached out, just moved to Cincinnati, and grew up, was born in Atlanta, but grew up in New York, Manhattan. And I was like, what's the culture shock like for you here? She's like, I like it here. It's laid back. It's a lot less stress in New York, and people are nice. And so I just, we talk about real estate stats and charts and the market and what's best for you financially. But there's also obviously what I try to do on this channel is help people who don't live here understand what it's like to live here. And overall, it's a very friendly place to live. And I hear over and over from people, like when they move here and they get on the street and they start talking to their neighbors. Well, one of the top questions I get over and over again is like, where are your fences? I swear I get this question all the time. And people locally here are like, what are you talking about? And people everywhere else, I guess, apparently you guys live in all jails everywhere around the country where you have 6 to 8 foot tall privacy fences and no one talks to their neighbors, and you just live your isolated lives on your devices. And that makes me very, very sad because here in Cincinnati, we still live on our devices, not gonna lie, but we don't have those fences, or very rarely do we have like the 6 foot to 8 foot privacy fences. We have 4 foot fences. So if you have a dog, you have a 4 foot fence. But most HOAs won't allow a larger privacy fence. And what does that do? Well, it makes neighborhoods look different, one. And number two is we oftentimes talk to our neighbors, and we oftentimes have like block parties, and the kids on the street, and they come over and jump on your trampoline. And this listing I just came from, they've lived here less than a year, but they're like, yeah, we just had like a progressive dinner on our street last night, like a holiday party. It was pretty awesome. And I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. It's pretty great. It's fun to get to know your neighbors for sure. Luke's like, yes, the fence is for the dogs. So you can do 4 foot fence. That's often wrought iron, or it's like split rail wood with like wire behind it. These are usually HOA neighborhoods that allow for those. You can do electric fences a lot of times. A lot of people, I understand, don't like to do that for their dogs. But those are usually allowed. Or if you really want that higher fence, just so you know, you need to look for a community that doesn't have an HOA, or you need to buy out in the country somewhere. And that's fine. We have a lot of those as well. But just so you know, that's why people are often confused by that. So, hey, Aunt Eileen, thank you. Appreciate that. Merry Christmas. Good to see you. Okay. So, and thank you for liking every single post I put on Facebook. It's so helpful. Makes me glad. Okay. Back to the fast. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here with this article, but just to point out that there are some people here doing some amazing things. Here are the story highlights. They've pledged over $500 million to charities in recent years. Just again, this couple, okay, they've pledged over $500 million. I know this looks like when you see this ship, you're going to be like, oh, these people are just on their yacht somewhere. And that's not what is going on. They've actually made a hospital on a ship that goes to people and helps people who need help, who needs medical help. This is just such a cool story. I just wanted to point it out. Their philanthropy. Sorry, I can read. Philanthropy challenges others to contribute and support causes. Their gifts have moved forward big projects at the Cincinnati Zoo, Boys and Girls Club, and more. And I read an article about Harry a few years ago, and they popped back up again. And I'm just like, these people are so cool. I would love to meet them. Harry married his wife, Linda, in 1970. He was earning $100 a week as a lawyer. He then bought his first apartment building with 6 units to manage as a side business, but it would soon turn into a real estate empire. So, by the way, just another reason why, like, I love this guy is he's into real estate investing. And from what I can tell, they just, consistently added value, found value add apartment buildings here in this. I don't know if they're all here in the city or not, but if you don't know, a value added is where you find an apartment building that's being undermanaged. And so when something's being undermanaged, there's a lot of opportunity there. There's opportunity for equity. There's opportunity to improve the amenities. There's opportunity to raise the rents. And when you raise the rents, then you get a lot more equity in the property. So it sounds like, from what I can understand, he just did that over and over and over again and built an empire, which is awesome. Now, Fath Properties has more than 7,500 apartment units, ranking among the largest apartment owners in the region. As their real estate portfolio grew, they weren't interested in lavish spending sprees or opulent homes. They viewed their growing wealth as an opportunity to improve not just Greater Cincinnati, but the world. There wasn't a specific moment that sparked the need to give, but as their net worth continued to grow, so did their need to do something about it. The most important thing is that I'm married to a gal that's on board with me. I just, I love this guy. Harry Fath, or if anyone who's watching this knows Harry Fath, please introduce me. Because I don't think I'll have quite the real estate empire he does one day, but I do know absolutely that when I am his age, I will say the exact same thing, that the most important thing I could do is marry a gal and still be married to her who's on board with me. I just like this guy. Some people go out and when they make a lot of money, this is his quote, they get themselves a big yacht or they have 6 homes. We're just not interested. Harry Fath said, if you want civilization to continue, you have to step up and make it a better place. I love that. I love that. This is one of our city leaders. Okay. And I know most cities probably have someone like this. I hope, at least, anyway. But I just wanted to spotlight this. I think this is amazing and worth spotlighting. The Faths have pledged more than $500 million to organizations throughout Greater Cincinnati and beyond. Most of these gifts are for tens of millions of dollars and are either cash, planned gifts, or some hybrid combination of two. But this, I want to read this too. It's a challenge to the community, to their peers, and to organizations. They don't just write a check, smile for the photo op, and move on. The Faths give to provoke others to do the same and to turn heads toward work. So I'm going to call out 2 things here. They've done this where they've basically used their gift to leverage others to give. There's no advisors. There's no foundation. It's just them. It's just the Faths. Every decision made between the 2 of them, despite receiving dozens of calls each week asking for money. There hasn't been a single gift they haven't given that they haven't initiated themselves. They say they can't do everything. So it goes on. There's kind of an infographic here. This is their Mercy ship, which is what I mentioned before. It's a floating hospital. So that's what's in the background of that picture above. They attended St. Xavier and Notre Dame. He became a lawyer here in Cincy. Then he started Fath Properties. $5 million they gave to Music Hall for the renovation, which, by the way, that's my favorite building in the city. So thank you, Harry Fath. $120 million to Mercy ships, which are floating hospitals. $50 million to Xavier University for the endowment. $50 million to the Lindner Center of Hope. $61 million to 61. So they've mostly done targeting. $63 million to the Cincinnati Zoo. $50 million to the Boys and Girls Club of Cincinnati. $50 million to University of Notre Dame. Springer School, $15 million, $1 million to Ensemble Theater, and $1 million to Marion High School. And usually what they do is they challenge others to give as well. Not every organization has the ability to receive a gift of that magnitude. And I think the Faths were very cognizant of that and very thoughtful about which organizations they feel could leverage and maximize that level of investment. So if you're in the nonprofit world, what do you have to do to get your organization ready to get a gift like this? So I just think that's amazing. What they did with the zoo here, the Faths committed $10 million to the campaign, promising an additional $40 million if the community could step up and raise the remaining $100 million. I just love that. I love the way, even in giving, if you can leverage and spur on and inspire other giving from others, from the community, your gift is not just the 50 million. You helped raise 150 million for our zoo. And our zoo obviously is like one of the best zoos in the world. It's incredible. So the 5-acre elephant trek is thanks to the Fath, and a lot of their giving. So I just wanted to spotlight this family. If you want to learn more about him, I'll show this real quick. I went and tried to do a quick little bit of research, and I looked up Harry. So look up Harry Fath Holiday Party 2022 if you want just another 16 minutes of seeing an awesome Cincinnatian. And I just watched this video. I'm like, this guy is who I want to be. Like, I just really respect this. I can tell the wisdom of what this man believes in. And he wants to give back. And he, I just think it's awesome. So you can watch that video, look that one up on your own time. I'm obviously not going to do that here. Alex, what is up? Hey, I've got a question for you, Alex. If you're watching, hang tight. Are the Bengals going to win versus Dallas, or are we going for draft positioning? Yeah. Who cares? I was on, you guys may know, I've been doing the podcast. Some of you guys may know Paul Denner Jr., hear that podcast Growling. And I've been on their Growler podcast. Sorry. It's just the Growler podcast now. It used to be Hear That Podcast Growling. And love talking with him about Bengals. And I asked him for the worst case. My question to him this week was, what is the worst case scenario for Bengals fans, barring injury or like Joe and Jamar leaving the team? And his answer was essentially, you keep winning so that you lower your draft pick, but none of your defensive picks like show you anything. They're just all terrible. And you know that going into 2025, you have a lower draft pick and all of your defensive draft picks suck. And so like, yeah, that's pretty terrible. I think I thought the worst case scenario, maybe prior to the Pittsburgh game, it's maybe too far of a long shot now, was like they win 5 games and they're in, they've got to win the last game to go to the playoffs or something. And they're playing the Steelers, and the Steelers like sit their starters and you still lose to them to lose going to the playoffs. And then you've won all those games. So your draft pick is lower. Yeah, it's so sad. I don't know if we're going to win tomorrow or not, but I think it's probably going to be really fun because there's going to be a lot of offense for sure. So we'll see what happens. Luke asks, can you put trees or shrubbery in the front of the 4-foot fences? Check with the HOA is the answer to that one. In front of the, it depends on the HOA. And so you can usually in the backyard, yes, you can grow shrubs and trees and get that privacy that way if you want to go that route. And so you'll see that a lot. And a very popular pick is to go for cedar trees. That's one that people buy a lot because they grow so stinking fast. And so within like a year or two, you're going to have that six feet. My parents did that when we moved in, and those things grew to like probably 18 or 20 feet over the years. But yeah, usually you got to double check with the HOA in the community, is the answer to that one. Okay. I'm going to move on to another Cincinnatian that I want to point out. I just read this book of this gentleman, Roger Grein, and also a philanthropist. His book was just pure Cincinnati. An amazing story. And if you have time, you can watch this documentary or you can read his book, but he was given up from birth by his birth mother. He was adopted. He was diagnosed soon with, actually not diagnosed, but he had cerebral palsy. And so walking was challenging. Sports were challenging. Everything was a challenge in this man's life. But he overcame so much and started his own business, started an accounting business, graduate from UC, and did so well because everyone knew him in the community. When he was a kid, he used to mow lawns and shovel snow. And so everyone knew him from that. And he eventually built a great business because he's just like super solid guy. But he also created a, by the way, I just read this whole story. It's like the most Cincinnati thing ever. You like go to Reds games and like German stoic family, who didn't know how to share their emotions. And it's just like, it's just a very, very cool story. And he started this organization called Magnified Giving, which I also thought is just really, really cool. And I'm going to call these people up because I'm very interested in this. But the idea is he's trying to empower the next generation of philanthropists and community leaders. So what he'll do is take some of his giving, and he started these grants and funds at all these different schools. And with the schools, what they would do is it would kind of like pay for the teacher of the class, and then he would give the money to the students to give away. And so their job was to research these different, profit and losses, basically. So he was an accountant. So he would teach them how to look at nonprofits in their books and see and allow them to choose which nonprofit they wanted to give to. And in doing so, you're kind of spurring on this next generation of givers, because then they may go meet that nonprofit and they see the work that's being done. And I'm just like, this is awesome. This is so cool. So it's called Magnified Giving here in Cincinnati. Just wanted to shine a light on it. Their mission is to educate, inspire, and engage students in philanthropy and to touch the hearts and minds of teens, lighten the concerns of others, and magnify the impact of philanthropy. They also have like a summer camp. Oh, sorry, I'm not showing you guys right now. They have this summer camp called Camp Give, which I'm really interested in sending my kids to this summer, where the kids can go 5th through 9th grade, engage in meaningful hands-on service projects, and learn how they make a difference in the world. And my understanding is the kids actually get to, like, part of the fee for the camp, they get to give away. So like you're teaching the youth how to give back to the community. And I just think it's very cool. I haven't met everyone here yet. I just read Roger's book from my back doctor who gave it to me. And I loved the story. So I'm just like, hey, this is the time of year to think about this stuff. It's year-end giving if you're a business owner, or even if you're not, and maybe you're bundling your charitable giving on your taxes. Maybe check out Magnified Giving and see what's going on there. I know I'm going to do that with my kids this winter here. We've got some funds in a donor advised fund that we can give away. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and just wanted to shine a light on that here. And again, this is part of Cincinnati. This is part of the community. And there's all kinds of great nonprofits here locally that we support. But I didn't know about this. I thought this was very cool. And I think it's such a cool, inspiring idea. These people who are, have received so much in their life, and then are thinking like, how can I give back? How can I leave a legacy? How can I give beyond me? I just think that's a beautiful life. That's a life well lived, where you've taken care of your family, and now you're taking care of your community, and then you're trying to figure out how to leave a legacy even after you're gone. That is a dream of mine. That's what I'm aiming for. So if this video gets out to Roger Grein or Harry Fath, I just want to say thank you, gentlemen, and your wives, or Harry's wife. I know Roger never married, but just thank you. Thank you for your work and serving our city. I know I'm sure I've benefited from, I know I have. I've benefited from your guys' giving to this community at the zoo and various places around, and just your heart to give back. I know that multiplies. And so I just want to say thank you to you guys. Okay. So a couple other questions here. Sorry, you guys are, I didn't scroll down. Bengals going to win. Alex still there. What's up? They're still better than the Giants. Yeah, Giants are terrible, but the Bengals are not much better than the Giants. It's also the Simpsons. I mean, I think the Simpsons simulcast is maybe the best thing going for the Bengals game this week. Is probably what's going on. Shoot, I've got CP and haven't heard of him. I'll have to learn more about him. CP, who did I say? I've got CP in here. I don't know who that is. Okay. I can't remember what I said earlier. So, Alex, while I got you here, let's talk arena. What are your thoughts? Really? Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. Cerebral palsy. Unbelievable. I didn't know that. Yes. So look up Roger. Yeah. Amazing story. Watch his story, rogergrind.live. There's like a 30-minute, what is this? O'Neill. So check him out. He's still alive and kicking. It'd be cool if you could meet him. But yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate that. Yeah, I hope you guys can connect. That would be amazing. Okay, moving over to this, and this we might stop here tonight. What else did I have? I wanted to touch on this real quick. Actually, let's do this thread real quick. But just I'm just gonna hit this headline. But Habitat for Humanity, if you guys know about this charity, where they're building houses for affordable housing, essentially, but they're looking to expand their footprint this year too. So I saw this headline as well. I thought it was in the theme of this idea of charitable giving here at the end of the year, at the idea of giving back, but they are looking to expand significantly in 2025. And the other thing I wanted to point out that they're doing is these row houses. So we've talked about this, with the connected communities and with the change in the zoning plan here in Cincinnati, where zoning laws have changed, where you don't need as much parking, that you're going to see a lot more of these row houses pop up. In fact, that was Paul Dana Jr.'s question for me this week from the Bengals podcast was, I'm seeing all these luxury condos and townhomes. I'm like, yeah, you're going to see more of those and these row houses where they can do more of these infill projects. It's a little bit more affordable for the developer. There might be a tax abatement for the buyers. So you're going to see more and more. They're building these on the West End in Cincinnati. So speaking of West End, so that's that article. Let's go over to the new arena and where this thing is going to be built. I haven't read this whole article yet. I just know this conversation is happening about an arena coming to Cincinnati, whether or not there will be a long-term tenant like an NHL team or an NBA team. I mean, hopefully that could be something down the road. But I do know, yeah, of course you want it downtown. Alex, let's take a look at this map real quick. The different potential options, it looks like, I guess, well, there's multiple areas, but they've talked about the casino. They've talked about it here. I think this is actually a really good spot to put it, west downtown. The problem with this one is it's maybe a little further out in the future because this is land that could be come back from doing the new bridge, and they're kind of trying to clean up all this spaghetti mess of highways right here and reclaim a few acres. So I think that would be a really cool spot just right off the highway for an arena and just location and visibility. But what I ultimately think, yeah, I'm with you. Yep. My bet is TQL because the article of this headline is Jeff Berdine, and Jeff Berdine is, obviously part of TQL and the soccer stadium and FC Cincinnati. And they've been working on this plan for a long time in the West End, and the Lindners have, a heart for the West End. And so I think where it lands is probably going to be here on the west side too by TQL. And they're kind of developing this whole district with hotels and restaurants and large developments that are going in there. So I think it'll end up there as well. But interesting to watch what ends up happening with that. A lot of politicking, a lot of debating going on. Ultimately, like for me, what I care about is like, let's get it in the city. And I think that's what Jeff wants to do. I think he knows how to work all the levers in town and the power players and how to work the press and how to work the public. And obviously they're asking the public to spend a ton on this again. And so I hope the public gets exactly what it's, it's weird for me as a resident in Northern Kentucky and seeing both this conversation of the arena, understanding obviously all the anger towards the Brown family from the previous, Paul Brown Stadium, deal that went down years ago, and knowing that lease is coming up again here as well. So, but if I were to bet, I'm exactly with you, Alex, that it'll probably be over there on the West End by TQL. So, okay, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up here tonight. I got to get home and do some stuff before the evening ends, but I appreciate you guys jumping in. Hope that gives you a little bit of taste of what's going on in the real estate market as you're thinking about your year end. Highly recommend to think through your charitable giving if you haven't done that already. If you guys haven't known this tax strategy, by the way, if you're not the standard deduction is really high, but if you can itemize and get above it, and you can give in basically a couple years worth, back-to-back years, like end of one year, beginning of the next, or stack all of your 2025 giving into 2024. That way you can get above the standard deduction, get more off your taxes. But anyway, tax strategy, look it up, look up tax bundling. Which side is better to live on, Northern Kentucky or Ohio? It just depends. They are both great. They are, for somebody who's not from the area, I think you won't feel a huge difference between the two. You'll feel a little difference. Okay. Northern Kentucky will feel a little bit more Kentucky, a little bit more Southern to you, but Lexington and Louisville, Kentucky would say Northern Kentucky is definitely more like Cincinnati and more like Ohio. On the other side, Cincinnati is going to feel more Ohio and North to you, but Columbus and Ohio, Columbus and Cleveland are going to say Cincinnati is like Cincinnati, Kentucky. So it really is kind of a melting pot in the middle. And honestly, I think that goes back to the Civil War. And I think the Ohio River was literally the border between the North and the South. And I think we still feel that. And I think it's blended between Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati, where it feels a little North and a little South at the same time. I think that's kind of cool. Actually, I think that's separately as to what I like about Cincinnati. I think that mix makes Cincinnati a place where we're pretty welcoming city and kind of understand different dynamics because of some of the history that's in the city. Yeah, Alex is going to say Ohio. I'm going to say Northern Kentucky because I live in Northern Kentucky, but I've lived on both sides. I lived in Anderson Township and Claremont County actually for about a period of 8 years after college, and I loved it. It's a great area of town. I love Anderson Township. I've got a heart for that side of town for sure because I spent many years over there. So I think it depends on like your job. I think it depends on how close you want to be in Cincinnati. Honestly, you can typically find that a lot more in Northern Kentucky than you can in Cincinnati, unless you are okay buying an older home in Cincinnati. So just depends. Depends on where you're going to be for. I think the work equation or family equation is a big part of it. Then it's more about what type of housing you want. You can probably find pretty similar products on both sides of the river. Another part of the equation, I would say, is the airport. Like, do you travel a lot? If so, you might want to be closer into Northern Kentucky or at least on the east side. One other consideration I would say right now is like that bridge project. And that's going to be the next, I don't know how long it's going to take, 5 years to build or something like that. And so, theoretically, it won't slow down traffic on the current Brent Spence, but I don't know. I think if you can stay on one side or the other for work, I would probably do that. So especially if you need to use I-71, I-75, where it crosses the Brent Spence, I would probably, if you work in Cincinnati, probably stay on the Ohio side. If you work in Kentucky, stay on the Kentucky side. Otherwise, or I would say the east side is pretty easy, or really anything on the 275 loop. I know this is probably a longer question than you wanted. But anything on the I-275 loop is still kind of like a warp zone for those of you who know Mario. You can get around the city pretty quick. And from anyone who's moving here from Atlanta, Chicago, New York, like California, Vegas, you guys look at our traffic and you laugh and you're like, it's insane. You guys can get anywhere you want in no time. When I interview people from here, they often say, yeah, the worst thing is the traffic. And I'm like, go live in another city for a little bit. I don't know. That doesn't answer your question. Northern Kentucky and Ohio are both great. It's all great. There's a lot of good stuff. Just depends on what you're looking for. Depends on if the bridge is okay. Yeah, for sure. You are quite welcome, Luke Farmboy. And no, it's great info. I appreciate it. Good. I'm glad it's helpful. All right, guys, I'm wrapping up. We're closing in on an hour here. Got to go have a meeting with my son and kind of plan out his week. So hopefully I'll get back here before Christmas. If I don't, wish you a Merry Christmas and give to a charity. Take some time. If you don't know any, maybe that would be a great video to do. Top charities in Cincinnati. Alex, you have a great one too. I appreciate you guys jumping on here. Really enjoyed the conversation. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you, Sztanyo Clanyo. If you weren't able to jump in the chat, leave a question down in the comments below and I'll get to them. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Have a good night.